So, today we're diving into a series of ancient narrations that lay out this really precise, really dramatic countdown. And this isn't just a random collection of prophecies, okay? It's a very specific sequence of events, all centered on the Levant, modern day Lebanon and Syria, that are said to lead directly to the rise of a figure known as the Sufyani. So let's break this ancient countdown down step by step. Right off the bat, the story begins not with a whisper, but with a full-on scream. You see, according to these traditions, the very first sign is a brutal wound that gets inflicted on the land of Lebanon. The narrations paint this picture of a region just engulfed in trials and horror. It sets this incredibly ominous tone for everything that's about to unfold. So, what causes this wound? Well, the texts tell us about this massive invasion, a kind of cataclysm that sweeps down from the north. It's set to start in a place called Al-Zarara, or Baghdad, and then it just drives relentlessly right into the heart of the Levant. And this is what kicks off the entire prophesied period of tribulation. What's really striking here is how these invaders, a people called Bani Kamtura, are described. They aren't just a political or military force. They're defined by this terrifying moral emptiness. The texts are graphic. They say that mercy has literally been stripped from their hearts. Their actions are brutal, they're indiscriminate, and they target everyone, from the innocent to children. It's a force that's basically operating without any human compassion whatsoever. So this force carves this path of absolute destruction. Fortresses are leveled, cities are besieged. But here's where it gets really specific. The narrations make a crucial distinction. While a lot of the Levant is ravaged, Damascus and its immediate surroundings are actually spared from that first wave of complete ruin, even as blood is being shed in its eastern quarters. And look, this isn't some vague warning. The text calls out a major city by name, Aleppo, and it laments its specific fate, a devastating siege that leads to its ruin. It's this kind of detail that really grounds the prophecy, It makes the horror feel tangible, anchored to a real-world place. But just as the narrations detail all this intense suffering, the story pivots completely. It presents a total and complete inversion. Because after this storm of tribulation, they describe an era of absolute peace and justice under the prophesied leadership of the Mahdi. The contrast, it couldn't be more stark. Just look at this. Every single negative from that time of trial is completely flipped on its head. Wailing and horror are replaced by a world where hatred has vanished from people's hearts. Slaughter and captivity are replaced by a society so safe that a woman can apparently walk all the way from Iraq to the Levant and not be bothered. Even nature itself is transformed, with kids playing safely with snakes and scorpions. And this transformation, it goes way beyond just safety and peace. We're talking about an era of almost supernatural abundance. The narrations claim that a single measure of grain will yield 700. Things like epidemics, usury, and other societal ills, they just disappear. And this new era has a clear structure. It's not just about good feelings. The leadership is directly tied back to the very region that suffered so much, with governors from the east of Lebanon ruling over the Levant. And the ultimate center of this new world? It's Jerusalem, where the Mahdi will live until that final confrontation with the Antichrist, or the Dajjal. Okay, so just when you think you've got the picture, the prophecies shift gears again. We go from internal turmoil to this grand geopolitical conflict. The focus moves to an epic naval war, a massive campaign launched against Rome and Constantinople, with its roots planted firmly right back in the Levant. And listen to the logistics of this incredible undertaking. It's all detailed in the texts. The resources for this massive fleet come directly from the Levant. The wood is from the mountains of Lebanon, the ropes from the palm trees of Bisen, and this entire fleet of 1,500 ships departs from the port of Acre. 4 great armies unite for this campaign, their hearts supposedly free of any hatred. But this isn't just a war story. There's a fascinating theological point being made here. So the Romans, they send a queen. She builds 2 fleets, but each time her arrogance, her failure to acknowledge divine will, supposedly leads to their destruction by a divine wind. It's only when she builds the 3rd fleet with humility, acknowledging God's will, that it finally succeeds and reaches Acre. But its arrival kicks off a fierce battle. And the cost for the Muslim forces is immense, the narrations claim. 1/3 are killed. Another third just flee. It's only the final third that holds their ground and fights their way all the way to Jerusalem. It really underscores the severity of the conflict and the high price of victory. And here we have this dramatic turning point. Just as the armies are on the verge of taking Constantinople, literally as they're dividing the spoils, a cry goes out. The Dajjal has appeared back in the Levant. The news is so urgent that they just abandon the conquest and rush back, only to find out it was a false alarm. He hadn't fully emerged yet. Okay, so we go from that epic global scale, and the narrative zooms in with incredible precision. It focuses right on Damascus and its surroundings, and it lays out 3 specific sequential signs that act as a direct countdown to the emergence of the Sufyani. Let's just walk through this sequence. First, you've got political chaos. 3 distinct factions, represented by 3 banners, are clashing in the Levant for a whole year. Second, things get physical. A massive earthquake that kills 100,000 people, followed by an army arriving from the west. And the third and final physical sign is so specific it's chilling. A village near Damascus, Harasta, is swallowed by the earth. After these 3 signs on the ground comes the final, undeniable signal from above, a great cry from the heavens during the month of Ramadan. It's described as a sound so powerful it awakens the sleeping and terrifies the awake, a sound heard across the entire world. This is the moment that signals the time has truly, finally come. And when that village of Harasta is swallowed, the narration says to wait for the son of the liver eater in the dry valley. This brings the focus right down to a single person and a single place. And what's fascinating is that the narrative suggests the Sufyani doesn't just seize power out of ambition, he has to be convinced. His followers find him in this valley near Damascus, and they frame their request not as some kind of power grab, but as a religious duty. They're basically pleading with him to save the people from the chaos and horrors they're living through, to step up and defend the faith. But his first response is a flat-out no. He tells them, "I am not your companion." And this is so crucial. He's not portrayed as some man thirsty for power. He's reluctant. He has to be pushed into leadership, which, if you think about it, makes his eventual acceptance even more potent. So how do they get him to change his mind? They change their argument. They appeal to his noble lineage, his connection to the Quraysh, the tribe of the Prophet Muhammad himself. And they reframe the motive. Look, they say, it's not for wealth or comfort, it's to be a protector, a defender of your people and your faith. And apparently, that is what finally convinces him. So he accepts, he ascends the pulpit, he commands jihad, and his followers swear absolute obedience. His very first major test is a battle at a place called Al-Azraq. He faces 2 other major factions, and in a brutal fight where 60,000 are reportedly killed, he wins. Decisively. He consolidates his power in one swift, bloody move. And this victory completely flips public perception. The people, seeing his strength and his decisiveness, they start to believe that any negative rumors they heard about him must have been lies. With his authority now cemented, he wastes no time at all. He begins his campaign with his very first march heading straight for the city of Homs. And that really brings us to our final thought here. The narrations paint a picture not of some obvious, cackling villain, but of a reluctant leader who is persuaded that his tyranny is a necessary act of salvation. So it leaves us with this question to chew on. What's truly more dangerous, a tyrant who actively craves power, or one who has to be convinced that his cause is just?